consequences of our actions as Parliament, many people around the country vilified members of Parliament. But the President was very firm. And I remember, Your Excellency, in your State of the Nation address last year, you did indicate that indeed when the history of the transformation of this country is written, Parliament and the legislature of the 13th Parliament, the legislators that sat in the 13th Parliament, will indeed have a paragraph on the story of the transformation of our country. And that transformation, Your Excellency, as my brother Aaron has said, did not just begin with what we committed to Kenyans as we campaigned together on the question of universal health coverage, on the transformation of our agriculture, but moving on now to even what you have called or christened the Singapore dream, or the journey to Singapore. That indeed, Your Excellency, as we put on page 10 of our manifesto, and I had hoped the Secretary General would have shared a copy of our UDA manifesto and the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. Part of what, Your Excellency, you have been speaking to is the establishment of a National Sovereign Wealth Fund and the National Infrastructure Fund that we actually put in black and white on page 10 of our manifesto. And we say that we shall establish a National Infrastructure Bank. We call it a bank in our manifesto, and that is what we are now calling a fund. And I know there are discussions, Your Excellency, on still how to actually implement that as a fund or as a corporation. And why not, for the support of many of these legislatures here in the National Assembly and in the Senate, we will not be where we are today. We can see light at the end of the tunnel because we know we'll be able to actualize that dream of moving our country from a third world to a first world nation because of the commitment and the dedication of members of Parliament who become facilitators of that dream and that plan that we sold together to the people of Kenya. Your Excellency, when last year but one, in 2024, Parliament was heavily criticized and vilified because of the finance bill, you encouraged many of us here on June 25th or 26th when you called us, and together we agreed not to assent to that bill, that with time, Kenyans would come to realize that indeed Parliament was right. And I say that, Your Excellency, because later that year, on the 4th and the 5th of December, and I have said this before, we passed 97% of what was contained in the June finance bill without any incident, Your Excellency, at the end of the year. It is through the passage of those bills, the Business Laws 1 and Business Laws 2, the Tax Amendment Act of 2024 and the Tax Procedures Amendment Act of 2024, that we have been able to realize the immense movement of infrastructure projects, especially around the roads projects. Your Excellency, you remember, right around that time in June, July of 2024, we also amended the RMLF Act that eventually last year we were able to pass a small amendment to that act to help us realize the securitization program that enabled your administration to raise over 175 billion shillings that is helping us to move forward many road contracts that had stalled. And all of you are aware that we had road projects that had stalled in our constituencies, in our wards, from way back as 2015, 2016. And those road contracts today are ongoing, courtesy of the changes that we made to the RMLF Act and securitization of part 5 shillings out of the 25 shillings that is there in RMLF. Your Excellency, the health laws that we passed in 2023 is what Honorable Aaron was speaking to, and the Deputy President has spoken to it, on SHA, or the Social Health Authority, and how that has helped to actualize the dream for universal health coverage. And there are stories of the success of SHA today, Your Excellency, courtesy of the resilience of these members of Parliament, MCAs and our governors who have helped us also to roll out and encourage Kenyans to register. That indeed today across the country, Kenyans are not being, we are not pleading as we were pleading before with Kenyans to register in SHA. They are the ones through word of mouth who are encouraging each other to register for SHA to be able to benefit from universal health coverage. Your Excellency, we have also supported in a big way the agricultural sector that and the reforms the Deputy President spoke to, whether it's from the sugar levy, the 4% that we put in 2023, 2024, and also, Your Excellency, in many supplementary and annual appropriations bills, we have ensured that we are appropriate resources to all the programs in agriculture, in energy, in roads, that will ensure that we're able to roll out that development program that we have for our country. And I must be very appreciative, Your Excellency, that we have never, as a leadership of the House, had any problem with any of our members. And indeed, we have seen the support of many members of Parliament, even being able to speak to those who do not subscribe to our manifesto, to convince them in the passage of the appropriations bills that we do, the finance bills that we have been doing every year, because without the appropriation bills that we pass in the National Assembly, the supplementary appropriations that come to supplement what would otherwise not have been provided in the main appropriations bill, that is what actually rolls out the programs that we are speaking about here today. And we indeed feel part and parcel of the successes of this administration, because, as Aaron has said, we campaign together and we are one team. Your Excellency, I did allude to the infrastructure fund. And I know many of the laws that we have passed have come in to feed this plan that we are speaking about here today. But the most critical that is ahead of us now is the establishment of that National Sovereign Wealth Fund and the National Infrastructure Fund. And Your Excellency, when last year in the State of the Nation address you spoke to Kenyans and spoke of the dream to raise money through privatization of our state-owned enterprises, many people took it as a story, and indeed many pundits in the media said that this is a new narrative, to Singapore. But today, Your Excellency, with the opening of the IPO of Kenya Pipeline and the ongoing process in the privatization of Safaricom, we can actually see it now becoming a reality. That, as you have said before, in the course of this year, we will have raised the first 1 trillion shillings, the first 3 trillion actually, because we will be raising the first 1 trillion shillings in the next month or so. And Your Excellency, we would not be able to realize this had we not passed into law. And I must thank members of Parliament who helped us to repeal and reenact the Privatization Act that established that legal framework that now is enabling the privatization of state-owned enterprises. Again, Your Excellency, through the enactment of the Government-Owned Enterprises Act, which you assented into law at the beginning of December, we will now be able to run our state-owned enterprises or our parastatals in a more efficient way, and in a way that we even put aside now political patronage as we move to a first world nation, because in first world nations, state corporations are not run politically, but are run by boards that are appointed on merit and on the basis of what they can add to the value in those organizations. And Your Excellency, we look forward to the operationalization of this Government-Owned Enterprises Act that will, in a significant way, transform how we manage state-owned enterprises and how they deliver on social obligations or public social obligations to the people of Kenya that have elected all of us. Finally, Your Excellency, on the National Infrastructure Fund, I know it has been lost to many people. How do we raise 1 trillion shillings? And Your Excellency, is good because I'm a student of economics and an accountant. To just take 2 seconds to explain. For instance, the Deputy President spoke to the construction of a new airport. That new airport will probably cost, I don't know how much, maybe about 200 billion shillings. If we were to raise taxes or revenue to finance that project, 200 billion shillings from our taxes, it would mean we go back and increase taxes to Kenyans. And we did commit that we shall no longer continue raising taxes from Kenyans. Equally, the president has told us that he took over an administration that inherited heavy debts, public debt. And we also committed, as we campaigned together, that we shall not burden our country with more debt, more public debt. 200 billion shillings to build an airport would have to go and borrow or raise taxes. But with the sale of the 65% that we are selling of Kenya Pipeline, if you raise 100 billion shillings, it is good to appreciate that even the people you see in the private sector come to invest in very heavy infrastructural projects that require a lot of capital. Many of them do not own the capital that they use to develop those projects. Indeed, what they do is to leverage on the capital they have to be able to raise more money from the financial markets. And that is what this administration intends to do through the National Infrastructure Fund or Corporation, or whatever we will call it, to be able to raise money that you will leverage on to lift those very capital-intensive infrastructure projects like the airport, a new airport. That if you need 200 billion shillings to build a new airport at JKIA, many private sector people will probably just need to raise 25% of that. 25% of 200 billion is 50 billion shillings. Out of the 50 billion shillings, if we invest from the National Infrastructure Fund 25 billion shillings or 26 billion, we will own 50% of the project through equity. Then the project, not the government of Kenya now, but the project that is commercially viable, which can repay itself and generate more revenue and more income to the government of Kenya and be able to repay its own debt. The project then will go and borrow the 75% to be able to finance up to 200 billion after only making an investment of 25 billion shillings. That 25 billion shillings is what we are now raising through the sale of KPC, Safaricom, and many of the other state corporations. And Your Excellency, I just took liberty to explain that because I know we are many here, and it's a good opportunity to educate each other so that we understand. Because you hear a lot of negativity from the naysayers, and what Your Excellency, you called the other day masters of political deceit and intellectual conmanship. And they are there, and there are very many. And many who do not understand where we are going and how we are doing it. And therefore, I want to take this opportunity to call on all of us to educate others, because part of the objectives of this NGC is also to educate each other so that from here, we will get many ambassadors who will take this message home to the villages, to our wards, to our constituencies, and to the people who vote for us and who voted for this administration. Finally, Your Excellency, I know there's an issue that has been raised on bicameral bills that are pending. I do know the one for the financial autonomy for the county assembly, because we have members of our county assemblies here. Let me confirm to this assembly that that bill came from the Senate, we passed it in the National Assembly, and the President assented it into law. It is now an act of parliament. The only small issue that was pending, or that is still pending, is that we did this in the middle of a financial year. And therefore, there was no way of going back in the financial year, because it would mean that we go back, redo our division of revenue, the CARA bills in the Senate, go back to the county assemblies, you redo your budgets, And therefore, I am hopeful that beginning this financial year of 2026-2027, that begins in June, county assemblies will have the financial autonomy that they sought. 2 is on pensions, both for governors and members of the county assemblies. Those bills are still pending. We are waiting for some consultation with the National Treasury, and more so because Governor Igoro has been asking me about this every day, on the impact of that pension bill on the division of revenue, the shareable revenue, whether it will come from the national government or from the share of the county assemblies. We are still consulting with the National Treasury to be able to guide us on that, and the same for the county assemblies, so that eventually we will have county assemblies and governors who also have a pension scheme that is contributory and that will help them post-retirement. With that, Your Excellency, I think I can also stop there. If there are any other issues that we have left out, we can handle them in plenary. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Makofi kwa Leader of Majority. My sister Cecily Barire, make it brief. I know you are normally very brief. And then before she takes over the podium, after Cecily Barire, I'll ask